Aloha and happy Tacky Taurus Day from Miss Gustafson. I'm here to do another read aloud from Journey. It's been a crazy week. I started the week out with some crazy blue hair. Then I had a mustache and a whole bunch of facial hair that I grew overnight. And yesterday I was dressed to impress with some lipstick and some sunglasses. And today I just got back from Hawaii. Weird. Just kidding. I did not. But I am dressed like a tacky Taurus that may be found in Hawaii. And I am here to do our read aloud for today. We have one more day of our virtual spirit week, and that is tomorrow. And tomorrow is black and white colored clothing day. So that'll be super fun. All right, here we go. Today I am reading chapter 8 and chapter 9 in Journey. I hope you enjoy. Chapter 8. The days grew hot and Bloom grew fat. Humid air hung heavy as parlor drapes in the house, but still no letters came. Only small packets of money with envelopes leaving a postmarked path I couldn't follow. Grandma took the fruit out of her crystal bowl in the dining room, and Bloom climbed in happily to keep cool. Grandfather groused, "She doesn't even let me wash that bowl." But when Grandma left, he set the table with all the china and silver, candles burning, and took a picture of Bloom lolling in the bowl like a queen. Then he handed me the camera, and I took a picture of them both, Bloom in the bowl and Grandfather at the head of the table. The candle flames reflected in their eyes. During the hot days, Grandfather was seized by picture-taking. He took a picture of Cat and me, up to our necks in the brook, and Cooper, his white, wrinkled feet thrust up between our faces. He took Grandma in the hammock under the tulip tree, playing her flute to Bloom, above her on a branch. He made me drive the John Deere through the hayfield as he perched dangerously over the cutter, photographing the blades as they turned. "If I fall," he yelled over the noise of the engine, "grab the camera!" And he maddened the chickens trying to take a still life of eggs in the henhouse. But it was the family pictures that consumed him and drove us into hiding. We would hear him call everyone innocently, and we would run to different parts of the house, Grandma into the pantry, closing the door after her, Cat under her bed, and me to the attic. But he always found us. Once we posed in the doorway of the barn, nicely framed, but a chicken flew past us. Even Bloom caught the tone, and would streak past us into the nearest room or behind the curtains, or, just that once, into Mama's room. That's why it was Bloom who found them. Under the bed in the room we never entered, in the room that Mama had stripped of herself, Bloom hid next to the box, waiting for us to find her. "What is this?" said Cat, lying down next to the bed. "Come out, Bloom." I lay down too, lifting the dust ruffle. Bloom batted at my hand, then jumped into a box. I reached out and pulled the box out from under. Bloom crouched down inside. Behind us was a noise. Grandfather held Grandma's arm as if she were his captive. "Come on now, I've caught her. Just one picture." And then Bloom jumped out of the box, and Grandfather's face changed. Inside the box were torn pictures, hundreds of them. Bits and pieces of faces and arms and bodies, slices of scenes of sky and flowers, a door, a porch here, the barn, the face of a cow peering over the fence, a baby's hand. I stood up. Grandma put her hand on my shoulder. "She didn't throw them away," I said, my voice a whisper. "Doesn't look like it," said Grandfather stiffly. He exchanged a look with Grandma. "Well," said Cat, getting up and dusting off her pants, "she sure did in our family, didn't she?" No one spoke. Then Cat looked up at Grandfather and Grandma. "It looks like murder to me." Murder. The word washed over me. It did look like a killing. Cat was right. Inside that box were people, Cat and Mama and Papa and me. Was that baby's hand my hand? I picked up the box and looked at Cat. Her face was pale. Tears sat at the corners of her eyes. "I'll fix this, Cat," I said to her. "I'll tape these pictures back together again." "Oh, Journey," began Grandma, but Grandfather stopped her. "It's all right, laddie. Journey's got a right to these pictures." He reached into the box and cradled a handful of torn pictures in his hand. Pieces slipped through his fingers like water. "It's Journey's past," he said. Morning has come and gone, and afternoon too. A standing lamp shines down, a yellow pool on the pictures. Faces stare up at me, and a dog I don't remember or I've forgotten, and Cat's face when he was 7 or 8. But it is the baby's hand. Where is the face? And where is the picture of the man who holds him? For a long time I work alone, sorting and shifting picture pieces like a giant puzzle. But I can piece together only a few, not the ones I want. Cat comes to crouch down, but she only looks. Grandma comes to bring me dinner on a plate, and later Grandfather stands above me so he won't cast a shadow. He leans down for a moment, picking up a piece, then putting it back. Then, without a sound, he is gone. There is moonlight at the windows when something, a movement in the room, startles me. Bloom walks across the pictures, and I look up, and Cooper is sitting in a chair by the window. He is wearing a strange cowboy hat, too small, that sits high on his head. We stare at each other. Cooper, I say, my voice soft, I will put all these pictures back together, and everything will be all right. Cooper is silent. I look up at him. It will, I say. It will, I whisper. Chapter 9. I am dreaming. I always know when I am dreaming because I can fly. I fly over the farm, over the blueberry barren, over the barn and house. I fly over Grandfather in the field, and when I call down to him, he raises his camera and takes a picture of me with my wings all warm. Then I fly down a road. The road turns into a map, and the map is large with all the roads marked, and I follow all the towns one by one by one. When I try to call down again, my voice has changed to a bird's voice, and no one looks up. I woke, sweating with early light coming in the windows. I sat up, looking over to the chair in the corner, and then I remembered that Cooper had left long ago. Long ago, after we had worked, and Cooper had sat back suddenly and told me that it was impossible. That was the word he used, impossible. That I couldn't patch all the pictures together because there were so many, more than I had thought. Look, he had said to me, some of these pictures are very old. Here is part of your grandmother's face when she was very little, like the picture in the swing, remember? My grandma's face, she had even torn up my grandma. And I told Cooper his cowboy hat looked stupid, and he left. And I knew Mama was never coming back. I got up and looked out the window. Cooper's bike leaned against the house, and I half expected to see him there, too. But I knew he had walked home, alone through the fields in the dark. Behind me, the lamp was still on, its pale yellow light spilling out over the pictures. I bent down and picked up the pieces, trying not to look at the faces of the people as I filled the box and put it in my closet. Bloom appeared to rub her face against my arm. With a small sound, she jumped into the box and lay there, looking up at me through tired eyes. The box is yours, Bloom, I said. You found it, after all. And I climbed out the window very quietly so as not to wake anyone and began to pedal Cooper's bicycle down the road to his house. I didn't get very far when I began to cry. Cooper's house was white clapboard with a cement sidewalk, his mother's narrow lines of alternating white petunias and red salvia on either side. I thought of Grandma's growing garden of flowers and vegetables getting larger as the day passed. Cooper's mother didn't like to garden. If God had wanted us to garden, he would have had plots all dug up waiting for us. And he wouldn't have created weeds either, she once said. I wheeled the bicycle up the walk. I was not surprised to see Cooper sitting on the front porch in a white metal chair. I was not surprised either that he still wore his cowboy hat. Thanks for bringing my bike, he said. I'm sorry. What I said about your hat, I told him. Cooper nodded. I sat down next to him. We looked out over the neat yard. You been crying? Asked Cooper, not looking at me. Yes. After a moment, Cooper shrugged his shoulders like Grandfather. Well then, he said, let's go in. Mrs. MacDougall is making breakfast. Cooper called his mother Mrs. MacDougall. So did Mr. MacDougall. I expected that one day soon Emmett would ask for his bottle, please, Mrs. MacDougall. In the kitchen, Cooper's mother was making pancakes. Emmett sat in his high chair, smears of banana and applesauce across his face and up his arms to his elbows. His hair was stuck to his scalp with pancake syrup. Food lined the creases of his neck like putty. He's learning to feed himself, explained Mrs. MacDougall, putting a plate in front of me. You'll have some breakfast, Journey? Emmett grinned at me, banana oozing around his two front teeth. Just a little, please, I said, and Cooper laughed. Mr. MacDougall, called Cooper's mother. I've eaten, Mrs. MacDougall, answered Cooper's father from upstairs. But soon he exploded into the room in his work clothes and kissed Emmett, then Cooper, then Mrs. MacDougall, then me. I was startled, trying to remember the last time someone had kissed me. The kiss was warm on my forehead, and I bent my head down to finish my pancake. Cooper's house was filled with MacDougalls, pictures on the refrigerator and above the doorway. After we ate, I followed Cooper into the dining room, where his great-grandparents hung over the sideboard. In the living room, there were pictures of Cooper as a baby, plump as a plum, Mr. and Mrs. MacDougall before they were married, and newer pictures of Emmett, all cleaned up and looking wise. I walked from room to room with Cooper, watching his life on the walls. Grandfather says pictures show us the truth sometimes, I said. Mrs. MacDougall stood in the doorway, watching us. Sometimes, maybe, but do you see that picture of me there on the piano? I picked up the picture framed in silver. Mrs. MacDougall was young, her mother and father standing formally behind her, her brothers flanking her protectively. Don't we look the perfect family? I smiled at her and nodded. While my brother, Fergus, there on the left, was pinching the devil out of me when the picture was taken. He did that all my life. He still does. I peered at the picture closely, searching for a look that told me this, but there was only smiles. Sometimes, said Mrs. McDougall, the truth is somewhere behind the pictures, not in them. In the kitchen, still in his high chair, Emmett began to fuss. Ah, well, said Mrs. McDougall, I'd better go hose him down. She turned. It's early, Journey. Do Marcus and Laddie know where you are? I'm going to ride him home on my bike, Mrs. McDougall, said Cooper. We ride up the dirt road, me sitting on the seat, my legs out, Cooper pedaling in front of me. I hold onto his wrist, and we pass fields and meadows and cows. We pass Weezer, the Moody's old dog, who makes a show of chasing us. Weezer, Weezer, chants Cooper, and Weezer stops, stunned by the sound of his name, just before he runs into the mailbox. We pass the Fuller's horse farm, and the fowls race along the fence, sending up little dust clouds when they stop. Cooper pedals up the long driveway to my house and right up over the grass to my bedroom window, and when I open the screen and climb in, Cooper behind me, everyone is there. Grandma, Grandfather, and Cat, staring into my closet. Bloom has had her kittens. And that is all for today. Please tune in for tomorrow, and I will continue doing our Read Aloud of Journey. Tomorrow I will be reading chapters 10 and 11. Have a great day. I hope you all are still healthy, you're still staying home, and you're staying safe. See you all soon.